4, 3, 2, 1. Oh man, welcome to J.E.D.I Live. We are talking about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion strategies in 15 minutes or less. My name is Holly Holiday. I am your official J.E.D.I master, and hopefully, if you've been hanging in there with our series, I love a good series because it gives us an opportunity to plan and set expectations. And so we are in the middle of talking about implementing equity plans. So when we think about equity plans, we think about equity plans in cycles. And we have a couple of cycles that we're going to be going through. We are currently focused on our planning cycle. But we know, as if you have been hanging in there with us, there are 4 cycles. So you're catching us in the middle. And the great thing about the cycles and understanding that it's a cycle is that wherever you enter the cycle, it's okay, because you'll have an opportunity to complete it no matter where you enter. Currently, if you're just joining us for the first time, you are entering as we are discussing the planning cycle. The next cycle that we will deal with will be the implementation cycle, then the monitoring and evaluation cycle, and then finally, we will close out our implementing equity plans with sustaining and scalability. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being in there when we talk about planning. Planning, within the cycles, you have a couple of different parts to it. So within the planning cycle itself, we've broken it down into 5 sections, and this is section number 4. The first section, we talked about the need to look at an assessment. The second part dealt with setting clear objectives and making sure that we even know why the heck are we doing this in the first place. The last time we spoke, I brought you up to speed on the importance of engaging stakeholders. And today we're going to talk about the money. Today is all about the money. And, I have a great collaborative partner. Her name is Renee Redwood. I think this is probably her favorite segment. One of the sayings that she uses frequently that I also have appropriated is budgets are statements of priority. So while we are talking about money, we're also talking about resources, which could be your time, the time of your team. It also can be the way in which you direct other resources and relationships. And so I'm going to talk about it in terms of money primarily today, but I want to make sure that we know that really when I say resources, I really do mean the full breadth of resources that's possible in any situation. But I want to be really clear that money has got to be a part of that. Whether it is, and it needs to be reflected, and it's helpful actually for it to be reflected in your budget. I know many of my clients are right now in the process of budget reviews, either because their budgets close out with the calendar year or they're planning for their next year's budget. And so I am in deep conversations with a lot of my clients about how they're using their resources effectively. And let's face it, some folks are also dealing with budget constraints. Unfortunately, budgets are not unlimited resources. So when we're thinking about how to apply them, we know we're making very intentional choices. I like to say that you can advance DEI and equity on any budget, which is true, but it's difficult to advance it on no budget. And of course, the size of the budget and the size of your investment is obviously going to dictate, how fast or how large or how integrated you'll be able to grow if you don't currently have an integrated program. Now, I'm going to try to talk to the different ways in which budget impacts, because the based on the work that you've already done will be based on the way in which you might want to spend your budget. Well, so I want to make sure that we're kind of dealing with all of those things. So I'm going to start back with the statement that I began with, and that is budgets are statements of priority. You can get you the t-shirt. Budgets are statements of priority. And why is it important to start there? Well, because just like a lot of things, and especially in business or nonprofits and organizations, and certainly I learned this through my work, whether it has been as an attorney, as a political operative, or as a workplace culture specialist. If you can't count it, it don't count. And so for many of us, that is the way we look at our work in an objective sense. And so we want to make sure, and budget is one clear way where we can see our progress objectively. So let's start with this. Understanding that budgets are statements of priority. Why is that important to an organization? Well, it demonstrates your level of commitment. Now, I do not want to falsely give you the impression that the amount or percentage of money that you spend in any kind of equity project is a direct correlation to its level of importance. But I am saying that you got to have some investment to demonstrate the level of importance. And that investment needs to be measured by what you hope to achieve within any given budget period. It can be used to do programming. It can be attached to specific staffing. If you're bringing on expertise, or whether those are direct hires or consultants or vendors. It can be used to support ideas or strategies or task force, or even like employee resource groups work. Or it can just be used to support social activities that are designed to enhance corporate culture or training. So any of these ways are different ways in which you might see things show up in a budget. But the key thing is that for the purposes of being able to report out and show accountability, you want to be clear that you're attaching it to what you're trying to move in terms of equity. Too many times the cost of equity is hidden in spaces and places, and no one can talk about it or define it. And when you can't define it, it certainly is difficult to maintain it and defend it when you're getting into those difficult conversations about where we're going to spend our time and our money. So being clear about its priority and how we're going to be using the money is critical. All right, now I want to dig into a little bit some of the key uses of budget and money. Well, let's talk first about people power. Well, there's no doubt about it that you can investing in people will almost always be a winning formulation. Whether it is investing in people because you're bringing on folks who already have knowledge and expertise, either through a staff member hire or through a consultant such as myself, or you are investing in the professional development of your team, meaning that you are providing access to training. You are providing access to resources. You are providing access to expertise for them to be able to do this work. Or maybe you are simply providing opportunities. This can look like specific programming, whether it be internal programming like supporting an ERG or uplifting a cultural celebration. Or it can look like external work, which could be anything from marketing campaigns to a key constituency, advocacy work that pertains to an issue area that is particularly important to a key constituency, recognizing and just making sure that your brand reflects the diversity that you seek to attract. All of these things are very intentional, purposeful, and require resources to make happen. Some folks say, well, we don't want to do these kind of equity and diversity because it's just a lot of it's a lot of expense. It's a lot of trouble. It's hard to, figure out how its impact is important. And I say to them, nope, not true. Not at all true. It is very easy to understand how it's important, but you got to understand how to utilize the tools. And one of those tools is budget, is resources, is being able to clearly define and allocate. And I have to tell you, some of my toughest clients, staff people that I have to talk to about this are your finance and operations people, because they like big buckets. And this does require you to put a little bit of definition. But once you've done that work, once you've invested that time to say, these are the core ways in which we are investing in equity, then you can utilize those over and over and over and over and over again. And again, I gave you some of the big buckets and big ways that you can do it. And I hope that that is really helpful. I think the other thing when you're talking about budget is you got to be able to explain it to people, not just what you're going to do proactively, but how do you explain it to people after it's done? How do you show, hey, because we invested in, for instance, let's use a simple recruitment program, because we invested in, shifting the way in which we're spending our recruitment dollars to be more inclusive of places where we find diverse communities, we have seen an increase in our applicant pool of 15-20% more diversity across a number of different categories. You can see that the investment in the space, and I would say it's gonna escalate if you not just invest the money, but you invest time in building the relationship, that those kinds of things pay dividends. And the dividends are being able to do things like attract key talent. They're enhancing your corporate culture, and ultimately preparing your organization to best meet and succeed in its mission and goals. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on. I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite things. I do one more thing before I go that I want to mention about funding and budgets is a lot of times we look at how we are leveraging our budgets internally. And that can sometimes be a bigger lift and a bigger commitment than thinking about how we leverage budgets and money in terms of partnerships. You know, you don't have to be an expert in everything. And maybe instead of simply just thinking about how we're moving equity, if we're doing it all by ourselves, we would be better if we engaged some of those stakeholders and worked with them to get stuff done. I'm going to use a nonprofit example because, as you all probably know by now, nonprofits are the majority of my client base. And so let's say you're looking to do some work on an issue in Atlanta, Georgia, and you would like to ensure that this work is reaching the LGBTQ plus community, minority community in the LGBT plus people. Well, what do? Because you don't have those resources internally. You may not have people from those communities that work directly for you. Well, guess what? You can partner with another organization that focuses on that, but may not necessarily do your issue or may not necessarily cover your work. So, for instance, maybe you're a healthcare clinic and you want to make sure that the services that you are now designing that are particular to the queer community, that information is getting out. So you may partner and invest, in fact, in supporting a queer community organization that will share the information about your healthcare services. So these are other ways that I want you to be intentional about thinking about how you use your money, not just internally, but also externally. Whew, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've said a whole mouthful. We're going to do these in 15 minutes or less, so we are fast approaching that time. I want to thank you and hope that you come back next week. Next week, we're going to be rounding out our planning cycle by talking about the importance of being compliant with the law, understanding and how to avoid lawsuits and other legal complications. It is so much better if you could be proactive and get in front of this stuff. And yes, Vanessa, thank you. It is intention is the word of the day. But my phrase I'm going to leave you with is budgets are statements of priority, and we're a little bit over, but listen, we'll be back next week. We'll try to keep it to a tight 15. Until then, like, subscribe, and follow me in all the places. It has been my pleasure to bring you this J.E.D.I Live. I missed last week. Don't worry, we won't be missing too many more. We are on top of it. Talk to you soon. Bye. Did you enjoy this segment of J.E.D.I Lunch Break Live? I'll be back next Thursday. Come on back and bring a friend.